Hey everyone, this is Nikachu, and we are back for round 4 of my Modern Challenge, playing Merfolk in Modern, preparing for Grand Prix Las Vegas. But before we get into that, we're going to thank our sponsor, themanabase.com, because if you love Cube and you love new cards coming out of sets, you're going to want to check out Aaron Packett's Cubism on themanabase.com. So we're on the play, which is always good news, and we have like a really keepable hand. Land, Vile, go. No reason to play Mutavault here. We have many lords, so we're going to want to get him into play. And we are up against Dredge. So I'm pretty happy about that. And I also like our hand right now. It has quite a few lords. It's got Harbinger of the Tides. And oh, look what we have here. Smuggler's Copter. And I actually think Smuggler's Copter, for the most part, should be a very good card here. I think only Stinkweed Imp is the only thing that roadblocks this damn thing, because it has Death Touch. I think there's a Death Touch flyer here in Dredge. But aside from that, well, to be honest, we usually don't get that much resistance against Dredge because all their like Bloodghast can't block. Prized Amalgam comes into play tapped. So if we have a pretty aggressive start, we're going to steamroll over them. But there do come board states where if we don't have Spreading Seas, they might just have a bunch of creatures, like a bunch of Prized Amalgams untapped and maybe a Stinkweed Imp that is on the guard, waiting for us to that don't let us get through. But I guess with the exception of the Stinkweed Imp, yeah, we can try to fly over them with Smuggler's Copter, and I think I like Smuggler's Copter for just many other reasons. It'll help us loot to maybe Master of Waves, maybe a Spreading Seas. There are critical cards in our deck that we do want to see in this matchup. Yeah, Stinkweed Imp does fly, even though it's sitting on the ground enjoying the beach. And even if Necromoeba, or I'm getting hate on how I pronounced Necromoeba, Necromioba. I don't know. We're gonna find it. We're gonna learn today how to pronounce that word, how to pronounce that name. Here comes Bloodghast. Dakmor Salvage hits the battlefield, triggering everything. Prize Amalgam's gonna come join the team. So our opponent gets 7 power on the board. We only have 3, but that's okay. We've got Harbinger of the Tides. We have Lord of Atlantis and Mutavault. We can catch up incredibly quickly. So let's get the party started first with, I believe, Harbinger of the Tides. Bounce the Prized Amalgam. Activate our Smuggler's Copter. And here's a cool thing I like about Smuggler's Copter in that, I mean, we're probably playing Lord anyway, but maybe there is a card that will change our mind that we could Violin play at end of turn. I don't know, maybe Silver Gilladept, for example, or maybe even Harbinger of the Tides. So we get to see more cards to give us a better decision about what we want to do with our hand. And I believe I just dump a land. Maybe if I thought more critically about this, it's better to dump the Tidebinder Mage, because I'm going to play Mutavault, and then next turn... No, I guess it doesn't matter. So I would play the Mutavault, and end of turn I would play a Lord, and then on my next turn I would play a Lord. So this Tidebinder Mage, we're just free-rolling on it. If I dump the Tidebinder Mage, we'd still get all the Lords out. But then I could have attacked with the Mutavault on that turn. Hopefully we find another land. However, it is easier for me to attack with Smuggler's Copter to find something. Oh wait, Necromoeba. Is that how it's pronounced? Necromoeba? Whatever. Somehow I never caught on to that. So I'm in a pretty commanding position against our opponent. He's also dredging quite poorly. This is not that great. He's got 1 Conflagrate in the graveyard, but our Smuggler's Copter is immune to it because it's a sorcery. Go Smuggler's Copter. And our Mutavault is also immune to things and stuff. Exotic Reunion, dumping the Prize Amalgam and a Stinkweed Imp. So if we look at the graveyard, opponent is going off, that's for sure. Fortunately, however, how many? Yeah, fortunately, this Necromoeba, whatever, Necromoeba, entered the battlefield before prized amalgam hit the graveyard, so these prized amalgams didn't get any triggers. So that's my upkeep. I keep drawing like gas for this matchup. I have so many good cards here. Not sure what I'm doing. I could in theory play, for example. Why am I doing this? Oh, I intend to attack with the Mutavault. So yeah, I'm going to go for as much damage as I can. I think I'm looking for a land here. Now I sort of want this land now that I have this Harbinger of the Tides, because I'd love to like dump this Tidebinder Mage, play the island, play the Lord of Atlantis, and then flash in Harbinger at the end of turn. Oh no, wait a minute. I think I'm just playing around. No, forget it. Oh, that's all nonsense. I'm just playing around the Conflagrate. I want to have as few creatures in play as possible so that I don't get nuked by the dumb Conflagrate. So I am prioritizing playing, attacking with Mutavault, attacking with our Smuggler's Copter. So normally Conflagrate is the card that completely dismantles us. They can wipe out our entire board, but that's not going to be the case so long as we have Mutavault and Smuggler's Copter on the board. Sorry, it's a little weird trying to remember what on earth my plan was at the time. It's not happening live, folks. Not happening live. So we get our opponent down to 8, and we're in a pretty commanding position. At end of turn, we can play Harbinger of the Tides, and then once again play our Lord of Atlantis. And Master Waves is great here, because if we draw one more land, that is a pretty good way to eat up a Conflagrate. Because they usually have to spend like all the shots on the tokens. I think my opponent doesn't know what they want to do. They're missing green mana. The Necromoeba stays behind. Bloodghasts get in for some damage. Come on, what are you doing? So there is a Conflagrate for 6, cooking everything over here. And, oh, I remember how this worked. Okay, so my opponent definitely misplayed here. Got a bit greedy. Hit the Lord of Atlantis for only 2, and the Harbinger of the Tides for 2, expecting them both to die, and use the remaining damage on my face. Whereas they should put at least 3 damage on the Lord of Atlantis to guarantee clearing the board. And all I did was tap the Vial to put a Lord of Atlantis in play and save the entire team. And that's the manabase.com. Get dunked on instant replay. Okay, so my opponent realizes, oh, I screwed up. It's over. So that was game 1 against them. I believe my sideboarding was something like definitely bringing in all the Relic of Progenituses. I brought in 4. I'm gonna keep Smuggler's Copter in because it's just good. It's probably gonna get hit by the artifact hate, but I think that's like game 1 very good. Game 2 maybe not as good, but I would need more experience. I believe I kept them in here. I think I took out Tidebinder Mage and the Dismembers as my cards to remove, because this guy's just a Grizzly Bear, and the Dismembers obviously are sort of useless. Yeah, so I kept the Smuggler's Copters in. This could prove to be a mistake, because they're very naturally drawing to things like Ancient Grudge, and they'll just blow it up. But I do know from a little bit of experience against Dredge that they're a little hesitant to blow stuff up like Aether Vial And maybe, well, I have a feeling they'll blow up Smuggler's Copter, but they're a little hesitant to blow up things like Aether Vial because they want to save their artifact destruction for Grafdigger's Cage or maybe even a Relic of Progenitus. Our hand is fine. I keep it. Our opponent is dredging okay. But not great yet. Here comes Hugs. Now here goes a lot of stuff in the graveyard. So everything's pretty set up now. There's like a bunch of prized amalgams, which I'm not very happy to see. This is like one of the more busted starts. And here's a Bloodghast, but our opponent has already played a land drop for the turn. And the most disappointing thing is the Vengeful Pharaoh, which apparently might be, what's it called? Nicol Bolas, because he's got the same Pharaoh hat. Exact same thing. Some foresight from M12. Nicol Bolas right here, ladies and gentlemen. Don't know where his wings are. Who cares? Anyway, whenever we deal combat damage to our opponent, if this thing is in their graveyard, they can destroy one of the creatures that attacked. It's a very annoying card. Yeah, so when you attack, you have to attack for a lot. And make sure you attack with creatures that you're willing to give up, because they're going to be able to destroy at least one of them. But you do have to put this card back on top of their library, but it doesn't matter because they're dredging like every single turn anyway. So get the Smuggler's Copter on board, because I am on board with Smuggler's Copter. And our hand is really not all that bad, because we can, if we get Master of Waves out, it's pretty good against Vengeful Pharaoh. But our opponent just found their Bloodghast and a Necromoba. So that's going to turn on all their prized amalgams. They're going to have a million prized amalgams. That is so annoying. Da-da-da-da. See, look, the triggers. Trigger worlds. Hey, we found a Relic of Progenitus. A little late, but it will deal with the Vengeful Pharaoh. So how much can we take? How much damage are we taking? Some just colossal amount of damage. 6... Sorry, this is 9, 11, 13, 15, 16. Well, we're not dead. And we can... But in these situations, you have to think about, like, how are we going to deal with this guy in the end? Because we can sort of stall the game with a Master Waves next turn after we take this 16 hit. Or hit for 16. Which isn't also not even totally true. We might even block something with Smuggler's Copter so we can take a few less. But there's often a lot of situations against Dredge where we take this huge hit and we try to stabilize from there. But you have to consider the flyers that they have. The Necromoba can kill us, and also Conflagrate can kill us. So there is a Conflagrate in the graveyard. Our opponent has 4 cards in hand, so that means 4 damage. So we're at virtual 16, so we do have to consider blocking these guys on the bottom. Unless I play the Relic of Progenitus and wipe the graveyard, which I want to do anyway because the Vengeful Pharaoh is in here. Do I do this now? Pretty sure if I wanted to, I would just do this now. Or am I waiting to see what my opponent does at their draw step? Because my opponent has the option of conflagrating right here and now. I think I should have cracked this at least his draw step to prevent one of the conflagrates from hitting our face, because that would make everything much more complicated from here. So Faithless Looting, going to draw some cards, going to dredge a little bit more, and from there I think I'm most definitely going to crack this Relic of Progenitus. I think my plan was actually to block this guy and then try to wipe him out, but this fetch land now annihilates that plan, because if I block a Bloodghast and he goes to the graveyard, now he can, in response to me cracking Relic of Progenitus, he can just fetch with the Wooded Foothills, get the landfall trigger, and get his Bloodghast back. So I'm sort of lucky. I have no idea why these guys are sitting back. Our opponent has at a very healthy life total. Yeah, I don't know what to say. There's no reason for these guys to be on defense. I don't even have an offense. It's not even like he can block the Smuggler's Copter. So we're going to Violence Silvergill Adept. We're going to draw a card. I'm going to happily block one of those blood ghasts with the Smuggler's Copter. Yeah, I have no idea what our opponent's playing around. I mean, even if we play Master Waves next turn, it's not like any of the creatures have haste. But our opponent might be up to something. Well, let's see. What could I have done? I'm not sure what on earth they were afraid of. Not sure. Okay, so I'm going to crack the Relic at end of turn. Unfortunately, my plan doesn't really work. Bloodghast doesn't go away. But I think a pretty good turn for our opponent was just like probably Conflagrate my face, then go all in. Because I would go down to 16, and they could attack for 3, 6, 9. One of these things would get blocked. 11, 13, 14. So I'd go down to 2. I think you can try to win from there. Even if I do wipe your graveyard, who cares? I'm at 2 life. It's pretty evil. So we draw a Spreading Seas. Things going very well for us right now. I'm going to empty my hand because that's what's going to be necessary if I want to get as much devotion as possible out of this Master of Waves. So Smuggler's Copter gonna do some digging for us. Opponent does not block with their Necromoba. And I play Master Waves and more or less have the board completely stabilized. So now they go on the all-out attack, leaving one thing back, but I don't think that is enough. So I do some blocks. This is 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 damage. Yeah, I mean, you never know what could possibly happen. For example, my opponent could like Lightning Axe. Well, I guess if they were going to remove any of the creatures, they would have done it pre-combat. But maybe they're just free-rolling on the attack. Anyway, I'm not going to take too much damage. I'm going to keep my life total reasonably healthy at 7. And I think this was enough damage that I could prevent while keeping as many creatures on the board as possible, so that when I untap, I'm going to tick up Aether Vial to 3, play the Rajiri, untap a Mutavault, and attack for the win. And Stinkweed Imp is on defense, but it's not going to be any good because we've got the Spreading Seas. And then it's all but over. I drew a Lord of Atlantis, so we're going to have a bit of a Rajiri combo. We get the Rajiri in play. We're going to untap a land. We're going to play our Lord of Atlantis. We're going to get 2 triggers, untap the Mutavault and the island. Actually, it doesn't matter what we untap here because we're using the mana for Spreading Seas. And we're going to get in while the getting is good. And it is very good right now as we attack for a cool 17. Sure, let's get in with the tokens too. And our opponent's dead. So that was our opponent says, wow. And that was our matchup against Dredge. So as usual, I'm going to thank my patrons for supporting me on Patreon. They are so awesome. And I'm going to thank our sponsor, themanabase.com. So Grand Prix Vegas is coming up. I hope to see you there. This has been Nikachu playing Merfolk in Modern.